right, peace, family. Welcome to We Charge Colonialism podcast and book club. I'm Kimba, a member of the Political Relations Committee.
Good morning, family. This is Frank Mauba, Chair for the Political Action Committee, WCC.
All right. Hey, what's going on, Frank, man? You good?
I'm doing good.
All right. So I want to appreciate everybody for tuning in. Tierney won't be with us this morning, but hopefully she'll be back next week. But I definitely want to appreciate everybody for joining us for another Saturday of discussion and analysis. Today we're going to be reading Huey P. Newton's Correct Handling of a Revolution, and the second part of this podcast and book club. So, for those who, want to get themselves in place for that reading, it's going to be on page 309 of the Black Radical Tradition. So you should have access to that link. But we're going to start things off like we always start off by doing our weekly roundup and, discussing what's happening in the news. So, Frank, you want to start us off? Speaking about Mali?
Yeah, this is what happened in the news about Mali. Mali was colonized by the French. And then in 2013, there was a huge presence of French army into Mali on the notion of fighting Islamic terrorism. And since that time up to present, in Mali, the French have about 500 troops into Mali. And the notion here is to fight the terrorist group into Mali, but since 2013 up to now, the terrorist group have expanded all over Mali and even leading to other African nations in our region, where the French have done nothing to fight the terrorists. But on the 3rd of January, there was a traditional wedding or something of that kind that was going on in that part of the world, in Mali, and the French army went there with their airstrike and killed about 16 civilians and 3 local or Malian army, total to 19. And the French government denied that they actually killed civilian, and they said it was terrorists that they went to go kill. But there's a report that have come out from UN that these were civilian and 3 Malian military that were killed by the French airstrike. And this is not the first time it's been going on in Mali. The French troops have been killing civilians. There was another incident again. 6 people were killed again by the French airstrike in Mali. And this news, have never been reported by the Western media, because what happened here, of course, CNN, BBC, ABC, and all the C, all the B will not report it, because they also have their military bases in Africa too. So if they come out to report on their allies, what's going to happen here is that their ally will also report on them. So they are all in Africa to protect one another's interests. So this news did not come out until 5 of the French soldiers were also killed in an attack as well before this news came out, because it seemed that they were doing investigation as to how those 5 soldiers of the French troop got killed in an attack. So in doing that, this how this investigation also came out, about where the French army or the French airstrike in Mali been killing civilians in Mali with the airstrike. So this is what happened in the region, and even AU cannot even talk about it and those things. So ECOWAS did not talk about it. So I don't know even why we have AU or ECOWAS on the continent, and this things are going on with on a continent and no report on it, and you have all these foreign military, all these foreign troops taking advantage of our people and killing our people, and we can't hear anything about War Crown Code or WCC, not WCC, ICC going against France military and in Africa or in Mali killing people. So this is just Mali. So imagine other country that you have other foreign troops, what they also doing there, secret that nobody getting to know.
Yeah, I'm glad you highlighted this story. I think not too far back, a few weeks ago, was speaking about British troops, special forces that were on the ground in Mali. And, it's interesting. You have the French there, you have British troops there, African, all of these forces who are in Mali. Like, what is their real interest there, in this landlocked country? And, understanding that Mali is a former former French colony. And I mean, it could be argued that this colonial.
But I keep about 1 minute. 1 minute. You want to check your sound system that it's not sounding right.
How am I sounding now? What was that, Frank?
It's still grinding. It's not sounding right. It's still grinding.
Yeah. All right. So let me try something different. I'm going to switch where I'm from. And,
okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on my computer, see if that. All right, give me 1 second. Sorry about that, everyone. I don't know what happened. I'm hearing the static, but I didn't know what that was. So let's see.
All right, family, brother, and Kima is going to be back. We apologize for the delay and for the sound system at the back.
All right. How am I sounding now?
Great.
All right, had to switch it up. So what I was saying is like, I appreciate you highlighting this story because what's happening in Mali. A few weeks back, I spoke about British special forces being in Mali, all under the. I think you raised like the pretext that they're fighting, quote unquote, terrorism. And it's interesting. I'm going to talk about a story in a minute regarding Islamic, quote unquote, Islamic extremists in the Congo. But here you have a former French colony, a country that's been quote unquote independent for over 50 years, somewhere around 60 years now, and you still have France, someone who has been there exploiting the people of Mali, oppressing the people of Mali, have a history of doing that. Still is in there under the pretext of humanitarianism and defending the democratic rights of the people of Mali. Someone who has stripped them of these things, and you have other foreign powers. You have AFRICOM there. You have France supporting other countries, militaries, Chad, Mauritania, Niger, Burkina Faso, under the pretext that they're fighting militants. So you have France all over West Africa. And, I think it's important for us to understand the reason why they're there, at least get to it. I mean, we can have theories on why they're there. But I think, we have to understand why we have to be knowledgeable of, what do they have to gain from being in Mali. So I wanted to raise that. And also, the other part of that is, I understand Mali is a landlocked country that never had the opportunity to really build relationships with other African nations as a result of colonialism. And so now they have become dependent upon a colonial structure, global structure that has been created, where in order for them to really utilize their resources, they have to go to the former colony of France and other European nations, Western nations, that has historically have been exploiting them. So I think it's this dependency that has led to a recent coup. Is there any information that you have on the coup that happened and how that's connected to France being in Mali?
I did not really go deeper or check into that about the coup situation, but maybe it is something I need to check into, and then on the next broadcast I can bring it up. But I just want to add to what you were saying about the colonization, or about France involvement, and also to highlight what you just said about Mali have not been given an opportunity, or Mali have not been put in a position where she will be able to exercise her own right as to which nation she can ally or which nation she can do business with. Now, let us also imagine that the reality here is, to be frank, those Francophone nation that was colonized by France, they are still colonized. There was one thing France was ought to put in that is called the French assimilation. And the French assimilation was a system of governing, a system of conquering, well, everything about country that France colonized were all French activities. They spoke French. They spoke French, and up to now they still speak French. So they didn't have the opportunity to speak even their dialect, their local dialect, or so they didn't even have the opportunity to practice even their own tradition and all of those things. So everything about them is all French. So up to today, that French assimilation is still in existence. Well, they can only partner with only France. They can only do business with only France. And they do not have the opportunity to even do business with other countries. So if they are doing business with other countries, then which means the French government have to agree, the French authority have to agree that, okay, you are allowed to do business with this country or with this outside world. And the only way that's going to happen, and the only way that will happen, is because that country is an ally to France. So they all are in agreement. They all are on the same agenda. If not, those country that was colonized by France up to today, they cannot do business with other countries outside if France do not agree. So that's a French assimilation that is still going on today.
Yeah, I think there it is. It's a important point that you just made. Mali not being able to freely exercise political and economic relations with any country that they want to plays a major part into the economic development. And and that goes also to Mali should be able to defend themselves. Like, why, going back to the point I made earlier, these foreign countries have to come in here and to be able to have to defend and protect the Mali people, and also their own economic interests at the end of the day. But I think it speaks to Mali not being able to have control of their economy and being able to fund their own military protection, like not being equipped enough to defend themselves. And so this is what you see throughout Africa as a result of them not being able to control their resources or dictate the value of their resources, leaving them dependent, even not just economically, but militarily on their former colonizers. But yeah, I know we build on this for quite a while, so we can move on to the next topic. I don't know. Do we want to speak about the Black Lives Matter, or we can just go into?
No, I think we will skip that. Maybe Tiana can bring that in next week, and then we can discuss that, because it's like she actually studied about it and she know what to say, and then we can chip in, so we can skip over that.
All right, we're gonna come back strong with that topic, but I'm gonna go into what's happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I think it was about a week ago. There was 50 people who were killed in an attack. 50 Congolese that were killed in an attack in two DRC villages. The villages of Boga and Chabi. And so, I looked into this. I came across the story. Read the story of what happened. But digging into the story and doing further research, I'm looking at pulled up a video from 6 years ago that said the same thing. At least 50 people killed in villages in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. They weren't the same stories. These are two different stories. And but when you dig deeper into what's happening in the eastern part of the DRC, and many of us may be familiar with what they termed the African World Wars that took place in the late 1990s, early in the early part of the new millennium. I think 2003 is when what they termed the second Great African War took place. This eastern part of the region has been unstable since that period of time. And so even today, when you look at what happened about a week ago, that's something that's happening frequently. The deaths or the killings of Congolese people, particularly in that eastern part. There is in other parts as well, but particularly in that eastern part, because you have somewhere over 120 rebel groups that exist in that part of the country. And so the government hasn't been able to even stabilize that country, even since the ending of these great wars that took place. And we're talking about a country where there's statistics from 1990, I believe, 8 to 2008, you had somewhere over 5 million Congolese who died as a result of war, that their death was war related. So within this country, I want us to, I like sort of just like giving a picture of the country, and so we can like put it in perspective. The Congo is the second largest country in Africa, with a population of somewhere, what's their population? I think somewhere around 92 million people live in the Congo. 60 million of those people are living in extreme poverty. Now, when we think about that, we go back to this history of colonialism and the impact that King Leopold and Belgium had on the country, and France and the U.S. even after independence, whose foreign relations in the Congo allow for a dictator to be propped up and the continued exploitation and oppression of Congolese people to take place. Now, you have 60 million people living in extreme poverty. You put that in perspective, the total population of the UK is 68 million. The total population of England itself is 56 million. Belgium, who used to control the Congo, its population is 11.4 million, and France's population is 67 million. And even Ghana's population is 30 million. I can go on and on. So you have people in the Congo population of people living in extreme poverty that's greater than the population of a lot of countries out there, and many of these European countries. And so that's a major contradiction. And we can see how these European countries are eating off of the resources, mineral rich Democratic Republic of Congo, whose people are living in extreme poverty. So I wanted just to make that connection and understand like this instability that's taking place in the East, where you have people who are being killed, is directly related to the resources. We think of like, why are people fighting? You have political, you have governments that are in place, Rwanda, government of Rwanda, even the government of Congo. All these people have interest in these resources that are in this country. And so these rebels are being funded by these governments because they want access to those resources. And so there's sort of like a proxy war that's taking place in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But who's benefiting the most from these resources? China, European countries, and the United States. So I mean, we can go on and on in this story, but I just want to encourage people to to look at what's continuing to happen in the Congo, because it is related to the United States of America, because we do benefit off of the instability that takes place in Africa. We want those resources, whether they're on the black market or any way, but we want those resources. Not we, I'm sorry. Not me.
All right. I mean, very great point. You touch on everything, but let me just begin with this before I can come in. The issue here is, and the reality here is, we should never ever believe any story told about Africa by the invader. Of course, you know that it's going to be fake. It's going to be wrong. It's going to be lies. They have always come out to say is that, because over 60 years now, first of all, these countries have been destabilized. These countries have been in a chaos. These countries have been have been a war zone. And what we should also know here is that one of the reasons why European nations succeeded in the colonization of Africa was because they were able to manage to take power away from African people. They were able to manage to make Africa poor, in that we were no longer producing what could empower us. And once you do that, you capture the people. You capture their mind and everything. You get everything from them. And that is why exactly going on in Congo, in DRC. Now, this is a nation. And when you look at the principle of the United Nations, one of the objectives of the United Nations is ceasefire, is what? Peace. The objective principle of the UN is peace. But how can UN have that objective principle? But UN been in this country for over 60 years, and UN see the chaos, and UN know how arms and ammunition have been smuggled into that country. UN know that the people in that part of the region do not manufacture modern weapons, machinery. UN know that no nation in Africa manufacture modern weapon. But UN have never come on one day to question where those weapons are coming from. UN have never questioned the European nation or America or Asia where those weapons are coming from, with the brand names and all of those things are being carried on into that country. UN have never come up to question. And at some point, UN was even smuggling mineral resources, and to the extent that that particular United Nations car had an accident. And there was a report on mineral that was in our car worth billions of dollars. Just one car, just one UN truck that was carrying those resources, and that UN truck had an accident. It was reported that the raw material that was in our truck worth billions of dollars. And UN have not questioned the war. Why over 60 year war is in this part of Africa? Why every day citizens in DRC have to die? If not a day, 40 people, 50 people, 60 people have to die every day from attack. And UN is within this country. So what is the role of UN when it comes to Africa? So UN is only there to protect peace and security in America or in Europe or in Asia, or country that was founded by the so-called United, how do you call it, that founded the so-called United Nations, are only there to protect those countries, and then leave Africa out. Because you can't tell me you in Africa, UN is almost all part of Africa, but where they have those resources, war are there, and UN is sitting there benefiting from that war and taking out the mineral resources, and UN cannot even make any comment. That's a shame on UN.
Yeah, I'm glad you had brought the UN up as well, and I see someone had raised something about the resources in the Congo, and this goes back to the point I was making earlier. So it's been estimated from our research. It's been estimated that $24 trillion. There's $24 trillion of untapped resources in the Congo. So think about that. That's estimated $24 trillion of untapped mineral resources. Now going back to the UN, the International Criminal Justice, International Court of Justice had determined that the DRC had lost billions of dollars in resources as a result of these conflicts that are taking place, and the looting and the theft of mineral resources out of the Congo by governments such as I'm going to say the governments are in cahoots, but like these companies, these people who are funneling resources out of the Congo, from Uganda, from Rwanda, they have been complicit in the theft of these resources. And so there's somewhere around $1 billion of resources that's being lost, right? So with that being said, though, the IMF, this is what I came across. The IMF and the World Bank rewarded both Uganda and Rwanda with debt relief packages for improving their economic health during the time in which much of their resources, much of their increased revenue was partially a direct result of illegally importing conflict minerals from the DRC. So, the IMF and the World Bank, these institutions were set up around the same time as the UN, and they all were supposed to be working together to bring about economic development across the world, bring about peace and stability across the world. But we can see right here that the IMF and the World Bank and a lot of these all of these colonial countries, their only interest is building up their economies, and no matter how they receive those resources, Rwanda and Uganda, who's receiving these resources as a result of this conflict, is able to benefit from the IMF and the World Bank's policies, despite being complicit in the destabilization of the Congo. So I think it just goes to show that there's no morals or ethical code that these colonizers have. It's all about the resources in Africa at the end of the day. So yeah, I think like we can end our weekly roundup. I think it was a great discussion. I hope that information was helpful for people to continue to do research on these particular topics and find out what's going on the continent of Africa, because that's Mother Africa. No matter where we are as African people, that is our land, and so we have to defend that land and defend African people across the diaspora. So we're going to move into the reading, but before we do that, just want to let everyone know, if you want to get involved in We Charge Colonialism, send us an email, info@wechargecolonialism.org. We're continuing to build our membership. Strength is in numbers. The only way that we're going to really overturn these contradictions is through unity and through organization. And so if you're not involved in the organization, We Charge Colonialism is definitely open to your membership. Also, we're going to be reading from the Black Radical Tradition, page 309. So I want to give everybody a moment to get there so we can, read today's, reading by Huey P. Newton, The Correct Handling of a Revolution. So this was written in July 20th, 1967. And a lot of these things that we read, I think, is still pertinent to today's situation. So usually when we read, it seems as if we're reading something that was written during this time. Let's get into it. So the Black masses are handling the resistance incorrectly. When the brothers in East Oakland have learned their resistance, fighting from Watts, amassed the people in the streets, threw bricks and Molotov cocktails to destroy property and create disruption. They were herded into a small area by the Gestapo police and immediately contained by the brutal violence of the oppressive storm troops. Although this manner of resistance is sporadic, short-lived, and costly, it has been transmitted across the country to all the ghettos of the Black nation. The identity of the first man who threw a Molotov cocktail is not known by the masses, yet they respect and imitate his actions in the same way the actions of the party will be imitated by the people, if the people respect these activities. The primary job of the party is to provide leadership for the people. It must teach by words and actions the correct strategic methods of prolonged resistance. When the people learn that it is no longer advantageous for them to resist by going into the streets in large numbers, and when they see the advantage in the activities of the guerrilla warfare method, they will quickly follow this example. But first, they must respect the party, which is transmitting this message. When a vanguard group destroys the machinery of the oppressor by dealing with him in small groups of 3 and 4, and then escape the might of the oppressor, the masses will be impressed and more likely to adhere to this correct strategy. When the masses hear that a Gestapo policeman has been executed while sipping coffee at a counter and a revolutionary executioners fled without being traced, the masses will see the validity of this kind of resistance. It is not necessary to organize 30 million Black people in primary groups of 2s and 3s, but it is important for the party to show the people how to stage a revolution. There are 3 ways one can learn: through study, observation, and experience. Since the Black community is composed basically of activists, observation of or participation in activity are the principal ways the community learns. To learn by studying is good, but to learn by experience is better. Because the Black community is not a reading community, it is very important that the vanguard group be essentially activists. Without this knowledge of the Black community, a Black revolution in racist America is impossible. The main function of the party is to awaken the people and teach them the strategic method of resisting a power structure, which is prepared not only to combat with massive brutality the people's resistance, but to annihilate totally the Black population. If it is learned by the power structure that Black people have X number of guns in their possession, that information will not stimulate the power structure to prepare itself with guns. It is already prepared. The end result of this revolution, education will be positive. Revolutionary education will be positive for Black people in their resistance, and negative for the power structure and its oppression, because the party always exemplifies revolutionary defiance. If the party does not make the people aware of the tools and methods of liberation, there will be no means by which the people can mobilize. The relationship between the vanguard party and the masses is a secondary relationship. The relationship among the members of the vanguard party is a primary relationship. If the party machinery is to be effective, it is important that the members of the party group maintain a face-to-face relationship with each other. It is impossible to put together functionary party machinery or programs without this direct relationship. To minimize the danger of Uncle Tom informers and opportunists, the members of the Vanguard group should be tested revolutionaries. You want to discuss that before I go on?
We can discuss that before and then we go ahead. This chapter, outline 3 key important things here. It says statistics, observation, and experience. And this is exactly, with African people all around the world, whether in the US, whether in Africa, or whether in Europe. African people have this, kind of about belief system right here. These 3 observations that they name here. One thing that we are doing here as well is education, where we come out weekly and explain what is happening around the world, and also, read and online and for our viewer to listen as well. So we are educating people. But equally so, there are other people again who are sitting there knowing the fact that we are fighting a great cause and we are doing the right thing. But they will still come out to deny the fact because they have not experienced it. African people mostly become part of an entity if they experience it before they can, come to become part. I think that's one thing, that's one problem we are fixing, with this generation, because again, this generation, majority of the youth do not have idea, of what happened in the past because of the kind of educational system that we now have that try to indoctrinate, our brothers and sisters. So they don't really have idea on what took place, by then. Maybe they might just hear on radio something like, there was something called slavery. There was something called slavery where African people were brought in to Europe and America. But the educational system don't really explain to them what was involved within that slavery, or what slave actually mean and what they went through, right? They're not telling them, so they don't really care, to be part of the struggle unless it really happened to them. And then before they can have some understanding that, what, I think I listened to a show, they said something like this, and this is what exactly happened to me. And then before they come back, to try to learn or to try to be part of an organization. So that's one thing, we are experiencing and now and then these days again. And another way, again, African people can become part of an entity is through observation. But again, we're talking about slavery, but they did not observe it. So one of the things that we can do is, and which of course these organizations have been doing, talk about past event and relate it to current event. In that way, they can observe, they can see some correlation, in what happened from the past and it's still happening in the present. So just in case they didn't experience it, they will relate again to our video. And this how, will also help us to recruit member as well. Then the chapter also talk about we have some people who misinform, how they call it, who do not, I'm trying to paraphrase this, who do not get along with, the movement or with the revolution and so forth. So one of the things that, the colonizer or the oppressor have been able to do, over the year and time to time, I think we talked about it, some times ago, we talk about incentive. And Black people love incentives so much to the extent that they can sell their organization or they can sell their friend to the oppressor because they are getting some kind of an incentive. And that incentive is what is destroying us, is what is destroying Black organization. Because again, we the masses, we do not have the time to come and give incentive for people to come to be part of the organization, because we want to make people to understand what is going on. So we are not here to come and give incentive. So we are here to educate the masses to be part of the organization and to fight this cause together. But on the other hand, the oppressor come out with an incentive and give it to some of the masses who don't know the story, who are not studying and who are not observing and who have not experienced. You see, and that is what really carrying us, within our movement. But again, we can't let that carry us away. We have to keep pushing on. Those who have ear, let them listen and learn. Those who have for to walk, let them follow us. Those who have minds to read, let them come and read. And those who have the attitude to be free, let them come and join the organization and make us free.
Yeah, great points, man. It really raised a few thoughts. Then in this particular chapter, we're talking about Huey's talking about putting theory into practice and being in the community and being an example. So later on, that community will support the movement. And I think this is why the Black Panther Party was able to build and become a formidable force within the United States, where they was looked at as the greatest internal threat to the national security, as J. Edgar Hoover said, right? Because even when there were attacks on Black Panther offices, the community would come and help build those offices back up. They would use their resources, whether it was the skills that they had or monetary resources to help build those Black Panther offices back up after the police that destroyed them, because of the relationship that the party had with the people in the community. Because they weren't just talking, they were actually in the community providing services. And so this became an example, and then so even if people didn't directly become members of the Black Panther Party, they were supporters. My grandfather, he cooked breakfast for Black Panther children. That was part of the program, Black Panther Party free breakfast program. He wasn't a Black Panther member, but he supported the movement. And you will see that there's a lot of people who during that time who weren't members but supported the movement. And so this goes into we don't need 30 million people to be, or whatever millions of people to be members. But if we're out there, we have organization, and we're out there and we're creating institutions and services for the community, we will have the backing of the community. So when there is an assault on on revolutionaries, the community will be there to defend the revolutionaries. And so the other thing I wanted to bring up is revolutionary education as well. So you have the practice, but you have to have like that vanguard party who has been studying revolution and engaged in revolutionary struggle. So the masses of people, as mentioned in here, you're not going to have the masses of people reading revolutionary thought, and revolutionary struggles throughout history. So that's not going to happen. But there has to be a particular theory or line that's put out, and I think it's important that it's anti-capitalist. That has to be, the position of the revolutionary. Because capitalism is what fuels colonialism at the end of the day, this relationship that we have. And so even if we do engage in a capitalist system, we have to, use it against it. We have to, use their weapons against them, not to build it up, but to ultimately destroy it. And so, but, we can go on, though. I know we're running out of time. So I'm gonna go on to the next paragraph. The main purpose of the Vanguard group should be to raise the consciousness of the masses through educational programs and other activities. The sleeping masses must be bombarded with the correct approach to struggle, and the party must use all means available to get this information across to the masses. In order to do so, the masses must know that the party exists. A vanguard party is never underground in the beginning of its existence. That will limit its effectiveness in educational goals. How can you teach people if the people do not know and respect you? The party must exist above ground as long as the dog power structure will allow, and hopefully when the party is forced to go underground, the party's message will already have been put across to the people. The vanguard party's activities on the surface will necessarily be short-lived. Thus, the party must make a tremendous impact upon the people before it is driven into secrecy. By that time, the people will know the party exists and will seek further information about its activities, even if it's driven underground. Many would-be revolutionaries work under the fallacious notion that the vanguard party should be a secret organization, which the power structure knows nothing about and that the masses know nothing about, except for occasional leaflets that come to their homes by night. Underground parties cannot distribute leaflets announcing an underground meeting. Right. Such contradictions and inconsistencies are not recognized by these so-called revolutionaries. They are, in fact, afraid of the very danger that they are asking the people to confront. These so-called revolutionaries want the people to say what they themselves are afraid to say, to do what they themselves are afraid to do. That kind of revolutionary is a coward and a hypocrite. A true revolutionary realizes that if he is sincere, death is imminent. The thing he is saying and doing are extremely dangerous. Without this realization, it is pointless to proceed as a revolutionary. Right here, I keep thinking about Malcolm X when I'm reading this. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people use that word revolution loosely. And he said the price of freedom is death. But I think, this, you had anything you wanted?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Malcolm X, that is why he's my idol. Yeah, because he was a man that never waited, for somebody to tell him this is what you need to say at this time, and this is what you can say at this time. Because he felt that there is no time. Every time is a time. So if you can't say it now, just bear in mind that you may not live to say it tomorrow. So if I know that I cannot live to say it tomorrow, why not say it today? So that even if I am gone, my voice will be there as a tool for the next people that will come after me to take that tools to go with it. And that is Malcolm X. And in today's revolutionary, like the book said, we have revolutionaries who are afraid to say what they need to say, but want the ordinary masses or the ordinary people to come and say it. And the reality here is, we all know in most cases, if the ordinary masses or the ordinary people come out to say it, it's not going to be fruitful. That is, it's not going to be powerful. It's not going to be heavy. You see, so the masses, the ordinary masses will follow. And that's why we have leaders in every entity. The leaders are there to speak because the voice of the leader is heavy, is heavier, is powerful. So once you speak, and the masses will follow. So in today's society, again, we go back to that incentive because they are getting something they don't want to lose. They don't want to speak because, again, they want to be part of the elite. They don't want to speak for their people, and they know deeply their people are dying. Their people are suffering. So they don't want to speak because if they speak, they will not rub shoulder with the oppressor. They will not be in the same meeting, in the same clique, in the same court group with the oppressor. So they don't want to say it because they know their master will tell them, oh, look, you are not part of us no more. So you don't protect our interests. Go to your people. So that is what's going on. They don't want to speak. So they leave us there, in that situation, in that kind of a situation. And knowing that the ordinary masses, if they speak, it will not hate the oppressor. But if you, the leader out there, and you speak, it's going to hit the oppressor.
Man, that was powerful. I don't even know what to add to that, but yeah, but definitely I think like that's important. To think that's when you have neo-colonialism at the end of the day. People getting to these positions and they're actually, doing more harm, African people doing more harm to the African community because they help legitimize the system of oppression, the system of colonialism. But I think like it's very important that we do have these conversations because they are having these conversations all of the time, talking about the colonizer. They're having these conversations and they're acting. And so if we're not out there showing any sort of resistance and we're moving in secrecy, then what's going to happen is that, the people are only going to see organization and theory from those people who are causing all of the misery and the suffering that people are living with every day. So it's important for us to like raise those contradictions through our theory and through our action. Um, so yeah, let me go. There was something else, but I think we can get like a couple more paragraphs in, and then we can kind of like wind down. So if these imposters will investigate the history of revolution, they will see that the vanguard group always starts out above ground and is driven. Driven above ground is driven underground by the aggressor. The Cuban Revolution is an example. When Fidel Castro started to resist the Butcher Batista and American running dogs, he began by speaking publicly on the University of Havana campus. He was later driven to the hills. His impact upon the dispossessed people of Cuba was tremendous, and his teachings were received with much respect. When he went into hiding, the Cuban people searched him out, going to the hills to find him and his band of 12. Castro handled the revolutionary struggle correctly, and if the Chinese Revolution is investigated, it will be seen that the Communist Party operated quite openly in order to muster support from the masses. There are many more examples of successful revolutionary struggles from which one can learn the correct approach. The revolution in Kenya, the Algerian Revolution, discussed in Fanan's The Wretched of the Earth, the Russian Revolution, the works of Chairman Mao Zedong, and a host of others. Millions and millions of oppressed people may not know members of the Vanguard Party personally, but they will learn of his activities and his proper strategy for liberation through an indirect acquaintance provided by the mass media. But it is not enough to rely on the media of the power structure. It is of prime importance that the Vanguard Party develop its own communication organ, such as a newspaper, and at the same time provide strategic revolutionary art and destruction of the oppressors' machinery. For example, in Watts, the economy and property of the oppressor was destroyed to such an extent that no matter how the oppressor tried in his press to whitewash the activities of the Black brothers, the real nature and cause of the activity was communicated to every Black community. And no matter how the oppressor tried to, in his own media, to distort and confuse the message of Brother Stokely Carmichael, Black people all over the country understood it perfectly and welcomed it. And I think that speaks to We Charge Colonialism podcast and book club, playing that part of the media. Because what happens too when we don't have this media, their language becomes a normacy, like it becomes normal when we hear it, and we think that they're having conversations about colonialism and imperialism, but they phrase it or coin it in such a way that we think is like normal, like it's regular language. They're being politically correct when they're conspiring to exploit and oppress African people all the time.
Yeah, you see, just to add to that, you see, one thing here is if the oppressor always come out to write our story, and we never have the courage to come out to debunk what it says, and it stay out there, and it seems to be the truth. You see, so whenever someone wrong you and they come out with their narrative, and you sat down there, kept quiet, and you don't come up with your narrative, what happened? Those are here, the other side believe it because you have not come out to say anything. That goes to say that it is unto us, we African, to narrate our story, to come out to tell the world this is what we are. Now, for example, In the reading, they talk about Cuba, and they talk about the Russian Revolution, and they also talk about the Chinese resistance. Now, that goes to say that no country in this world, you will not be a resistant force, and you think you will not be under somebody's command. If you don't want to be under anybody's command, you have to resist that pricing. If not, if you want to go morally, you are just showing to the pricing that you are afraid and you want to be under the pricing. Fidel Castro was not someone who was who just went and sat down, and was afraid. He resisted, and in resisting, he was able to conscientize his people. And that is why today we see Cuba on our own. Also in China, China resisted the oppressor. And in doing that, they instill into the people the Chinese way of doing things. They instill into the people that we are Chinese, and no one going to colonize us, and no one going to tell us what to do, and we are not going to be under anybody. So they make all Chinese people to gain consciousness of themselves. And the Russian people did the same thing. But African people, where we are today, we still being controlled by the same forces. When are we going to question ourselves and say, we have to be, today we are conscious people, we are conscious of ourselves, we are who we are. We are African, and this is our heritage, and no one going to dictate to us, and no one going to tell our story. The Chinese tell their story, and they say it's in a way that will benefit them, that even the next generation, when they come, they will love China. No matter how they travel, they go to the east, to the west, to the South Pole, the North Pole. At the end of the day, China is their home. Every country doing it, even this America, even the European, the Caucasian. No matter how they can travel to Africa and steal the resources and explore the place, they don't go there to develop. They don't go there to build. They take every other thing there and they bring it into the place they call their country. And the Chinese are also doing the same thing. They go there, they take it, they carry it to where they call their country, because they feel a sense of sentiment in that area. And that is what we African, we need to do. Africa does not need the war. The war needs Africa. And we can't keep saying Africa does not need the war needs Africa. And then we sit back and the war keep exploiting us and we don't benefit.
Yeah, hey, that was a great message to leave with, because I think, yes, as African people, no matter where we are, we have to look at, ourselves and say, we are African. We are African people, and we are members of the African nation. So, if you can say, hey, I'm Haitian, Jamaican, and have particular, I guess, like cultural identities that you want to attach yourself to. But when we're talking about this political struggle, which is an international struggle, and we talk about, who we're uniting with and organizing with in this political, economic, and ultimately military struggle, we have to do that as an African people under the red, black, and green, as the African nation all day. So I want to appreciate everybody as we wind down for being a part of this study. We're here every Saturday at 10 a.m. African Esquire, hope to see her back next week. She wasn't able to be with us today, but was truly missed. But these discussions is important. We want you all to be a part of it, but spread the word so we can get as many people to be a part of these discussions, because it's spoken about in this particular reading about the importance of controlling the media. That, at the end of the day, is about being able to control the message, because the colonizer has been doing a great job through his propaganda. And so before we shut off too, I just want to acknowledge the centennial of the the massacre that took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was known as Negro Wall Street. We know as Black Wall Street. But I want us to also understand, too, that the section of Tulsa, the Black section of Tulsa, was also known as Little Africa. And that's something that isn't spoken about a lot. And that goes back to why we need to control our media, because they want to erase this connection the African people here in the States have to Africans everywhere. We know who we are. And so, let's not get it confused. So, just want to acknowledge a little Africa 100 years later. So until next time, peace. Hope to see y'all next week.